Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will show you how to create window curtains. This is not about curtain wall, this is more about curtain windows. The fabric that hangs in front of our window to protect us from the sun. Now this is going to be a very simple curtains model that we are going to make. You guys can see it on the screen. The shape of the curtain fabric will be the same equally from the top down. So I will not going to give any fancy effect to it. You guys will not going to see any wind blow effect or maybe a tight back curtain effect. Nothing like that whatsoever. But this is going to be a Revit family, so we can use it over and over again in our next coming project, in a different projects. And also this is going to be a parametric family, so that means we can adjust the size and we can also decide on which side we want the curtain to be, on the left side, on the right side, or maybe on both sides. So this is going to be a wall-based family file, which means we are going to need a wall in our project file where we are going to load this family into. So how am I going to build it? Let's check out the video. Enjoy! Let's open a new family. Where I live, I use metric and I want this curtain family to attach to a wall. So let's choose metric generic model wall-based. Let's save it as, and I will save it as curtains. And I'm going to set the project units to metric. I will use centimeters. Now let's create the basic framework for this curtain family. Open the placement site elevation. Use the reference plane tool under the create tab. Construct the framework and put dimensions on where needed. Let's define this reference plane as strong reference and as origin. So later on we can control the height as the curtain top level or head height. I will space this left and right reference plane equally, so the center line will always be at center. Now let's give parametric labels to these dimensions. Now, I will need a vertical plane to define where the curtain fabric will be hung. So let's create a reference plane on a plan view. And I will offset this plane 5 centimeters away from the wall. So this vertical plane will be not just the curtain location but also the rod, because I need a rod on the top side to hang the curtains. Now let's create the rod, and we will create the curtain later on around the rod. I will create the rod as revolved shape. Make sure to set the curtain reference plane as the work plane. Give 1.7 centimeters for the radius of the rod. I'm just going to give 2 millimeters for the thickness. Don't forget to choose the horizontal top reference plane as the axis of the revolved object. Now I need to create the end parts of this rod, both left and right. This will be a more complex shapes and I want it to be able to move as the width of the family changes. It will be best if I create an own separate family. I will start from a face-based family template and later on it will be attached to the wall-based family I just created. Don't forget to save it as and set the project units into metric centimeters. Now I want to create the objects in a view that is looking this way. Let's open the front view. Now imagine that the ref level or reference level is the face of the wall. The center line of the rod ends will be the same as the location of the curtains. Let's create a reference plane 5 centimeters away from the reference level. I'm going to give a name to this reference plane. Let me name it as a curtains, in case we need it later. Now let's create the model object with the revolve tool. Don't forget to make sure that the work plane is set to reference plane center front back. Now let's sketch the revolve shape and thickness. The dimensions might not be accurately correct, but I can fix it later on if needed. And don't forget to set the axis of the revolved object. Now let's do the support that will support the rod to be attached to the wall. Okay, the shape looks good enough. You guys can make even more complex shape if you want to. I'm just gonna go with this one. Now let's load it into the curtains family file. Once you are back on the curtains family file, be sure that you are in the placement side elevation view, so the object can be attached to the surface of the wall. Use your spacebar key on your keyboard to change the object orientation. Now let's align and lock it where we need to. and I'm going to test it if they're flex as the width changes. Okay, the rod looks good. Now I'm going to play with the material. Let's adjust the material. Open the family types, add a parameter. I'm going to call this curtain rod and put the type of parameter as material. Now let's open the material browser and change the material. I'm going to delete all of this material and create a new material. I'm gonna rename it as curtain rod, and let's change the material here. I'm just going to pick one of these. Okay, check this one, and okay. Click the middle rod and let's associate the parameter to the material that I just created. Now let's fix the material of this family. Click this and edit family. Now let's open the family types and add more material parameter to it. Select all the object and associate the material to the material parameter we just created. Load into the curtain family file. Select the object family, open the edit type and associate the material to the material parameter for curtain rod. Now I'm going to check if the materials has applied. Let's check it from the graphic display options. But everything looks gray now. I cannot tell the difference. Let's go to the family types and edit the material. I'm going to change it to something that looks more punched out. Let me make it blue. Okay, it looks good now. I'm just gonna undo it. Okay, the rod looks good, but the end of it looks not right yet. Let me fix this. I want to have this ring a little bigger than the rod. So let's just fix it. Go edit family and let's fix the sketches. Okay, it looks better now. Now comes the more challenging part. I am going to make the curtain fabric. This will be a more complex geometry and it needs to be able to be copied, repeated in two different places and adjustable. I will also have a separate family file for it. Actually, I will have a couple of nested family for it. Open new family template. Let's start from a generic model. Don't forget to save it as, I will call it as curtain nested 1. And don't forget to set the project units. I will use metric centimeters. Now let's create the framework for the curtain. The curtain will go along this horizontal line, but it will be about within these two different reference planes I just created. I will set this space about 8 centimeters apart, so about 4 centimeters on each side. So that will be the curtain depth. Now let's set the curtain width. The curtain width will be a series of repeated small piece of 15 centimeters width curtain. Now I'm creating the small piece that has 15 centimeters width. In the final product, we will multiply this small piece to meet our desired curtain width. Now let's create the actual curtain fabric. I will use the extrusion tool under the Create tab. I will use the spline tool for the sketch, and I'm going to make sure that the spline sketch ends on the same side as where it started. I'd like to click 3 times on each end so it will create a straight line at the ends along the horizontal line. This way the small pieces will connect it nicely to each other when I multiply them along a straight line. Now let's give a thickness to it. Create a line using pick lines and give about 2 mm offset. Now close the loop to complete the extrusion. Now let's go to the front elevation to set up the height. I'm going to create a reference plane to set how far the curtain fabric will be hanged from the top down. Give a dimension to it and give a label for the dimension. I'm going to name it curtain height. Now let's align the bottom of the curtain and lock it to the reference plane. Now let's set the top part. I will give about 3.5 centimeters extra for the top. The next step is to punch a hole through the curtain along the top side so we can run our rod through it. So let's go to the left elevation and use the void extrusion to create the hole. Choose the circle tool and locate the center circle right at the intersection of the main reference planes. Align both ends to the left and right reference planes by dragging these blue triangular grips and lock it. Okay, the fabric looks good. Later on I will put 2 curtains, one on each side, left and right. And I want to be able to repeat this small curtain so it will expand as far as we want the width size to be. So I will create a new nested family file where I can put and adjust the amount of this small curtain to meet our desired curtain width. This new family will be a line-based family. I will save this new nested family file as curtain nested 2. Now let's go back to the curtain nested 1 and load it into the curtain nested 2. Now let's locate it on the end of this line on the left end and align it. Open the family type and let's create 2 parameters. one for the height of the curtain and one for the width of the curtain. Don't forget to make sure that we have the project units for this family file as metric centimeters. We need height parameter for each nested family file and associate them all the way to the parent family file. Pick the object of the curtain nested one, open edit type and click this small button to associate the height parameter to the height parameter under curtain nested 2 family file. Now let's change the height to test it. Now let's array this object. I'm just going to put 2 in the number column for now and move it to second. Make sure this will be group and associate. I'm going to array it 15 centimeters away. Now set the reference plane for the width and label it with the width parameters that we created before. Now pick one of the arrayed objects and click on this number. And let's create a label for the amount of the object that we're going to use. Now let's open the family types and create a new formula for the parameter that we just created. Now let's test it. The amount of small curtain might not stop exactly where the width dimension ends, but Revit will take the closest stop since it has to stop at every increment of 15 centimeters. Now let's load it into the curtain family file. I will put the fabric insertion plane on the top, same level as the rod center axis. So let me give a name to this top reference plane in case we need it later. Now under the project browser, go down under generic models, choose the type family, click and drag and put it on the desired location. Align where we need to. Now let's create the reference plane to control the width of the curtain on each side. I will use the same width dimension parameter for both sides. Now I'm going to pick both of the dimension and give a new label parameter for them. Choose one of the object family. Open the Edit Type dialog box. Now let's associate the curtain nested 2 width dimension to the new parameter we just created for the curtain family. Now let's try to change the size to test it. It looks good. Now I'm going to try to load it into a project. I'm going to open a new project. Save it. Now I'm going to create the wall and the window on it. Now go back to the curtain family file and load it into the new project file. Now let's adjust the height of the window and also the height of the curtain object. Make sure they are not too far away. Now we can try to put in the numbers. Click Edit Type and put in the numbers. Make sure we don't put any numbers that is too big or too small, otherwise Revit will give us an error message. Now let's deal with the material of this curtain fabric. I'm going to go back to open the family file. Open the curtain nested 1 family file. I'm not going to apply any specific material here. I will just associate the material all the way to the parent family file. So basically what I'm doing is associating the material parameter on the curtain nested 1 file to curtain nested 2 file. The blue box with dotted lines indicates that I picked the arrayed group object. Use the keyboard tab key to pick the object inside the blue box. Now let's associate the material parameter on the curtain nested 2 file to curtain family file. Once I'm done associating the family material parameter, now in the curtain family file, I can assign a specific material for the curtain fabric. Now let me just delete all the materials that I don't need, except the materials for the curtain rod. Now let's create a new material for the curtain fabric. We can even change the material on the project file if desired. Now, sometimes when the window is very small, we want the curtain only on one side, either right side or left side. Now I'm going to adjust our family file to let that happen. Go back to the curtain family file. Click on this object and let's associate the visibility parameter. Give it a name to remember. Do the same thing for this object with a different name. Open Family Types dialog box. Create 3 new family types: curtain both side, curtain left side, and curtain right side. Now go to each type, adjust the visibility section. Make sure only check the box of the object that we want to show for each type. Now load it back into the project. Pick the family and change the type to test it. There you go.